Named by many as the most beautiful castle in all of Westeros, Highgarden was the seat of power for House Gardner and later Tyrell as they ruled the rich and fertile lands of the Reach. Described to possess fields of flowers, groves and fountains, shady courtyards, marble colonnades, and old buildings covered by grapevines and climbing roses, Highgarden can also boast to have lush soil which grows melons, peaches, and fire plums. Known as a center of culture, music, and high art, the halls of the mighty fortress often teem with singers, pipers, fiddlers, and harpers. Built atop a hill and protected by 3 rings of white stone walls, an elaborate briar maze was constructed between the outer and middle wall, a labyrinth of thorns and hedges, which served to entertain and delight their people, while also adding to their defenses in case of invasion. Originally built by the First Men, Highgarden is home to a godswood with 3 ancient heart trees known as the 3 Singers. Having grown so large and entangled, they appear to be a single tree with 3 trunks. When the ruler of Highgarden chose to submit to the 7 gods of the Andals, they built a magnificent sept with stained glass windows, rivaled only by the starry sept of Old Town and Great Sept of Baelor in King's Landing. For most of its history, Highgarden was ruled by House Gardner, claiming direct descent from Garth Greenhand, the legendary figure from the Age of Heroes, some name High King of the First Men, who taught his people how to farm the land and left behind a great many sons and daughters. Stories say his eldest son, Garth the Gardener, wore a crown of vines and flowers, making his home atop a high hill overlooking the Mander River, and there built the settlement that would become Highgarden. Forming House Gardner, they sat upon the Oaken Seat, a legendary living throne, supposedly planted by Garth Greenhand, and came to rule a large portion of the surrounding territory. The Kingdom of the Reach, as it became known, was rivaled in the area by the Kingdom of the Arbor, Kingdom of the Hightower, and a kingdom in the Western Marches from Horn Hill to Night Song. Yet in time, they too joined the Kingdom of the Reach. The kings of Highgarden prospered greatly throughout the years, reaching their golden age under Garth Gardner VII, known as the Golden Hand, who ruled for 81 largely peaceful years. When the Andals of Essos began their migration west, conquering many of the realms of Westeros, the Houses of the Reach spent decades preparing for invasion, building ships in the Arbor and defensive walls around Old Town and Highgarden. But in the end, the Gardner kings chose a policy of accord and assimilation rather than open warfare. This was made possible because of the 3 sage kings, who each maintained this policy and successfully led the realm through these difficult years. Beginning with King Garth Gardner IX, he made overtures of friendship and alliance with some of the Andals migrating into his territory, bringing a septon of their faith to court, making him part of the king's council. While King Garth continued to worship the old gods, he allowed the construction of the first sept in Highgarden, claiming that it was better to accept the Andals and use them to strengthen the Reach, rather than oppose them and risk destruction. In his own words, he stated, "When a wolf descends upon your flocks, all you gain by killing him is a short respite, for other wolves will come. If instead you feed the wolf and tame him, and turn his pups into your guard dogs, they will protect the flock when the pack comes ravening." After the death of the king, his son, Merle Gardner I, came to power, and converted to the faith of the 7, funding septs, septries, and mother houses, as well as taking an Andal maiden as his wife. Then came his own son, Gwayne Gardner V, the first king born into their new faith, earning his knighthood, and like his father, married an Andal maiden. In exchange for oaths of fealty, each of the 3 kings took Andal knights, nobles, and retainers into their service, granting lands and titles to the most powerful among them. Under King Gwayne, the Andal knight Alistair Tyrell was made champion and sworn shield. Founding House Tyrell, Alistair's second son, Gareth, became the royal steward of House Gardner. Gareth and his own son, Leo, did so well in this position, High Steward of Highgarden became a hereditary title for the descendants of House Tyrell. The Gardner kings also made efforts to acquire Andal craftsmen, blacksmiths, and stonemasons, so they might strengthen their defenses and fortifications. Through the intermixing of Andals and First Men, several new houses rose to prominence in the Reach, including the Orms, Perrins, Gracefords, Cuys, Roxtons, Uferings, Laygoods, and Varners. With Andal culture now dominating the southern realms of the continent, the Kingdom of the Reach became known as a land of chivalry, with songs and stories speaking of gallant knights and fair maidens. Unfortunately, the Reach soon declined in power when it fell under a frivolous ruler who surrounded himself with fools and flatterers. King Garth Gardner X ruled for 89 years, yet his long reign saw much warfare and the near collapse of his house and realm. At the end of his life, the Reach was torn apart by war with the Stormlands, Westerlands, and Dorne, as well as a civil war which erupted between House Manderly and Peak. In the end, a Dornish army sacked Highgarden, burning the Oaken Seat and slitting the throat of the senile old king. With the ruler dead and realm divided, it was Sir Osmond Tyrell, steward of Highgarden, who set out to restore stability and peace. Gathering an alliance, he defeated House Manderly and Peak, then placing the deceased ruler's second cousin, Mern Gardner VI, as king in Highgarden. King Mern proved wise and dutiful, rebuilding his family's ancestral home, and rewarding Sir Osmond by wedding his son Robert Tyrell to a daughter of House Gardner. This proved quite useful to House Tyrell, as they could later claim royal blood and descent from Garth Greenhand when they eventually rose to power under the Targaryen conquerors. When Aegon and his sister wives invaded the continent in the conquest of Westeros, House Gardner raised a large army of 55,000 alongside their allies in House Lannister of the Westerlands, but were soundly defeated in the Field of Fire, leading to the death of King Mern Gardner IX, his sons, grandsons, brothers, and cousins. With House Gardner destroyed, Harlan Tyrell surrendered Highgarden peacefully and swore fealty to the Targaryens, who then raised House Tyrell to become Lords of the Reach. Although the Tyrells did have some claim to the ancient royal line of the territory, their ascent to power bore jealousy from older houses like the Florents, Rowans, and Oakharts, who like the Gardners claimed direct descent from Garth Greenhand. With a Targaryen king ruling from the Crown Lands, the Tyrells of Highgarden prospered greatly, even hosting a famous tourney known as the Field of Roses under King Jaehaerys I. A few decades later, during the Dance of the Dragon Civil War, the Reach became divided, with House Hightower and Redwyne siding with King Aegon, while the Tarleys, Rowans, Grimms, and many others sided with Queen Rhaenyra. House Tyrell, seeing its territory fractured, chose to remain neutral throughout the conflict. However, during Robert's rebellion, Highgarden and the Reach chose to fight for House Targaryen and provided one of their greatest victories in the war, defeating Robert Baratheon at the Battle of Ashford before laying siege to Storm's End. When violence again erupted in Westeros during the War of the Five Kings, the Tyrells of Highgarden initially sided with King Renly Baratheon until he was assassinated, then forming an alliance with King Joffrey and later King Tommen of King's Landing, marrying a daughter of their house to the crown. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Yormond Crowkiller, Jake the Red Fury, and Nesha the Flamebearer. If you'd like to help the channel with a monthly donation, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to see more.